Hello there and welcome. I'm Ole Brøgger, and if you're new here, I really hope I'll earn your subscription today. In this video, I will build a caravan with carriages and some horses. I already 3D printed a couple of horses here. I could 3D print everything like this little carriage here, but I want to customize it and I want it to be bigger. I also need to laser cut some wheels, and there's a lot of things going on here. I have some wooden dowels, I have some coffee stir sticks, and I need to paint a lot of 3D models. So, we better get started. The wagons will be a bit oversized. This is for playability and not to be realistic. I will cut some coffee stir sticks into a length of 3.5 inch. I just need to stack them up, trim off the round edge and cut them to size. I'll use 8 of these cut down planks. This is almost 2 inches wide. Line them up and use some super glue to glue in a crossbeam. And then I use some activator to speed up the process. I use a side cutter to trim off the axis. For the sides of the wagon, I will use 3 of the planks and repeat the process. I'll just make some space between them and glue in a crossbeam. And again some activator to speed up the process. Cutting off the axis, and I have 2 identical sides for the wagon. I want to mount them with a slight angle, and it's very difficult for me to hold it and glue it at the same time. So I need to come up with a solution. I found this piece of balsa wood, and I will just cut the angle I need. I will also cut out a small section of the sides just to lower the place where the coachmen are going to sit. The piece of balsa wood allows me to hold it with one hand, and then I can glue in the seat for the coachman. And this should actually be enough so I can keep everything together until I have stabilized everything with some more wood. I will glue in a piece in the lower back and the lower front. And trim it with my side cutter. I also need some wheels for the wagon. So I made 2 different sizes because I wasn't sure what size would fit the best. So I made a 25mm and a 20mm. And cut them out on my laser cutter. I also need a base for the axle, so I cut out a 4mm dowel into the right size to hold the axle. The axle is just a stick from a Q-tip, and I decided to use the 25mm wheels because they seem to fit the right proportions of the wagon. The 20mm wheels were a bit too fragile and thin cuts, so I was afraid they would break easily. I glued in the axle and the wheels. The wheels won't be able to spin, but since it's just a prop for the table, I think it's okay. And I put some super glue directly on the wheel and mounted it on the axle. I also need a tongue for the horses. I need 2 horses on each wagon that I'm going to build. And to hold the horses in, I used the same type of Q-tip sticks. They fit perfectly into the hole under the horse's neck. I went back to Inkscape and designed a couple of bows to hold the cover on top of the wagon, and fired up the laser to cut them out. I cut out 2 dowels in the same length as the wagon bed, and this is to mount the bows. This was a bit difficult, but I think if I just can manage to put on the first of the bows, then it should be okay to hold everything. I also want a slight angle on the front bow to give the coachman some cover. And with the help from some activator, I got the angle I wanted. And it seemed to be the right angle and holding fine until I can put in the next bow. And they were pretty easy to put in. Super glue and then some activator seemed to be the right choice for the job. Now I just need to make 2 more wagons. I have 3D printed some coachmen and I need to prime and paint them. And I also need to paint the horses and all the wagons. I used the dark wood speed paint to paint all the wagons. I also decided that I only have 2 wagons with bows and covers, and the last one will be an open wagon. I also had 7 horses that needed to be painted, and I decided just to use some speed paints. I used some different brown colors just to give it some variation. I also have this little nice wagon with an attached horse. This was a model I downloaded from my mini factory, and I think it would fit perfectly into the scenario. This is some packaging material from a laptop. The material is very soft, it's paper-like and still a cloth, so I think this will be perfect for the covers on the wagons. I cut out a couple of pieces in the right size to fit over the bows. I will soak down the covers in some Mod Podge mixed up with a lot of water so it will be very thin. I will make sure the material is soaked all the way through and then squeeze out as much as I can. I will put down some drops of super glue on each bow and roll in the cover. I'll also use some super glue in each end of the cover and trim it down with my scissor. To finalize the cover, I will use some unthinned Mod Podge and give it a nice cover. And while the Mod Podge dries, I will paint in some more details on the horses and Coachman. The Mod Podge is now dry and I can paint it with some speed paint just to give it some weathering effects. I use the palette bone and bony matter. To give it some highlights, I will use some pan pastel white and just dry brush it on. We need the horses in front of the wagon and I will just use some super glue to attach them. The covers has also fully dried up and I will just put it on so it will stay removable. And we also have this little guy, the Coachman, and he can sit right there. I won't glue him in because he could fall down or get shot or even be eaten by something if the caravan were attacked. The caravan is ready to go. I'm very excited about this build because this will just give my campaign a lot of options and I can use these wagons in different kinds of scenarios. They're a bit oversized, but I can still use them in different kinds of way and I think the oversize will enhance the playability. I can put all sorts of stuff into these wagons. But let's see how it could look like in a playable scenario. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I really appreciate you all being here, and if you think I earned it, please subscribe. You can also leave a comment down below if you have anything you want to share with me or just your opinion on how I did this build. This is it for now. Hope to see you again next week. Goodbye for now.